back to Open the Book. Here's another of our Easter stories. When it's really noisy, do you try and find a quiet corner to hide in? And when it's really quiet, do you try to find someone to talk to? Parts of today's story are really noisy, and other parts are really quiet. Let's find out as we open the book at the story called On the Road to the Cross.
Sometimes it was quiet and sometimes it was noisy. Sometimes there was shouting and sometimes there was silence. And sometimes there was a strange mixture of noise and quiet on that never-to-be-forgotten Friday.
It was early in the morning, and Jesus was standing quietly in front of a noisy crowd. The religious leaders had taken him to Pilate, the Roman governor. They did not like the things that Jesus was saying, so they had arrested him and put him on trial. They wanted him to be executed, but because the Romans ruled the country, Pilate had to make the final decision.
The crowd had gathered to see what would happen. What would Pilate decide? Was Jesus going to live, or was he going to die? Pilate asked Jesus lots of questions, but Jesus didn't answer.
Are you the King of Jews?
That is what you say. Pilate asked more questions, but Jesus just stood silently with his head bowed. Pilate was irritated that his questions were not being answered, so he turned to the noisy crowd and shouted,
I have two prisoners here, Barabbas, a violent criminal, and Jesus, whom people think he is the promised king.
The crowd went quiet and listened carefully to what Pilate was saying.
Today, I can set one of them free. You choose. Which shall it be? Jesus or Barabbas?
Barabbas! 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 Barabbas!
Barabbas! Barabbas!
Free Barabbas!
Free Barabbas! Free Barabbas! Free Barabbas!
What shall then I do with Jesus?
Crucify him! Crucify him! Crucify him! Crucify him! Crucify him!
What wrong he has done?
Crucify him! Crucify him!
Crucify him!
So Pilate handed Jesus over to the soldiers. They dressed him up as a king, making fun of him with a cloak and putting a sharp crown of thorns on his head. When the soldiers had finished, they put a heavy wooden beam across his shoulders and led him away to be crucified.
The streets of Jerusalem were noisy. They were full of hustle and bustle, and there were people everywhere. The heavy beam, part of the cross, weighed Jesus down as he staggered through the crowds. So the soldiers grabbed a man named Simon, an African visitor to the city, and made him carry the heavy beam.
Jesus followed silently as they struggled through the noisy crowds. Soon they came to Golgotha, outside the city walls, the place where criminals and rebels were executed. As the soldiers fixed Jesus to the cross, there's a lot more noise from people calling out and shouting at him as they passed.
Save yourself if you can. Come down from the cross and then we'll believe in you.
But Jesus didn't reply. He just hung there silently.
At midday, the sky went dark, and all the shouting and the noise stopped. Everyone was really quiet. No one understood what was happening. When at 3 o'clock on that never-forgotten Friday, Jesus himself called out twice, each time in prayer to his Father, and then he died. The Roman centurion in charge of the soldiers was amazed at what he had seen and exclaimed,
"This man really is the Son of God."
Later that day, in the quiet of the early evening, Joseph, one of the religious leaders who did believe in Jesus, slowly and carefully took his body down from the cross, released him from the beam, and laid him in his own tomb in a garden far away from the noisy streets of Jerusalem.
and there it remained, in white burial cloth, silently, all through the next day.
That was a sad story, wasn't it? But God didn't let it end like that. Next week we will hear about the wonderful plan that God had to bring Jesus back to life. Close your eyes for a moment and think how calm and brave Jesus was, even when everyone was being mean and shouting at him. Think of a time when you have needed to be brave and calm, even if you felt like getting angry and upset. Now, I'm going to say a prayer, and if you want to make it your prayer, say Amen at the end. Dear God, thank you that we can ask you for calmness when we might want to get angry and fight back. Amen. Thank you for listening to the story today, and see you soon. Goodbye.